I will leave the club at the end of the season.
One of the most difficult things for a football club to nail is the succession of a longtime manager. And for this reason, no doubt rival supporters would have welcomed the news of Jurgen Klopp moving on from Liverpool with glee, dreaming of how this could see Liverpool go on a downward spiral of sorts to completely crash out and lose their way. Well, it hasn't happened yet, and it's incredibly early in this season to still draw any kinds of conclusions. But based on what we have seen thus far, Arne Slot is living up to all of the things that we expected of him back when I made this video on his impending arrival on Merseyside. If you haven't seen it yet, I mean, it's probably not worth your time at this point. I'm gonna go over a few of those things from that video in this video. I know, I'm bad at YouTubing. I should be begging you to watch every video on my channel. But anyway, from 12 matches in the Slot era, Liverpool have been shining as brightly as their manager's brightly polished head, winning 11 and losing just once. They have won in Europe. They top the Premier League table, and they are doing so without any sort of new manager growing pains. And speaking of traveling abroad, honestly, air travel may be the worst thing ever, and on top of that, you're often faced with two choices. Pay extortionate prices to use your cell phone abroad, which is a necessity by the way, or go through the inconveniences of swapping SIM cards once you land in a new country, which is bothersome. Thankfully, there's a much easier, cost-effective option, eSIMs, and thanks to our sponsor for today's video, Saily, they are easier than ever to use, incredibly affordable, and they offer data plans for over 160 countries worldwide. So I went to Iceland this year, and having access to data was integral, otherwise I would have ended up driving into a volcano or glacier. They come out of nowhere. Thankfully though, at how cheap eSIM data plans are for Iceland, 5 gigabytes of data for $11.99? That's nothing. My service provider charged me $17 per day. I went to France to shoot my breast documentary. I was only there for 4 days, so I grabbed 1 gigabyte for $4. Get out of here, that's basically stealing data. So, for your next trip abroad, download the Saily app. You can do so easily by scanning this QR code, and be sure to enter my discount code RabonaTV, all one word, at the checkout for 15% off. Or click the link in the description and the coupon code will be applied for you. Easy. Saily makes everything easy and cheaper. So thank you, Saily.
If someone wants to convince me, he should talk to me about I like your playing style, because otherwise I would have been a wrong fit.
Where were we? Yes, new manager growing pains, or the lack thereof. In fact, Liverpool have actually looked stronger in some areas on the pitch than they did last season, despite having pretty much the exact same squad. That's actually one of the areas where Liverpool supporters were a bit worried this summer, the lack of investment in the transfer window. But it's one of the areas where Slot is actually quite skilled, making do with what he has, which is where the first big improvement comes in.
We have stable number 6 again in Ryan Gravenberch, who's done a really good job, and he covers a lot of ground and he does a lot of important defensive work. I think he ranks number 1 for ball recoveries and interceptions and these kind of things for Liverpool.
After Zuba ended the will he won't he with a big won't he, Ryan Gravenberch rose to the challenge and won the Liverpool Player of the Month award in September, and rightfully so, as he has seemed to have finally found himself in the midfield as a 6, and Slot deserves a ton of credit for that. He has always been identified as a talented player from his Ajax days. I mean, Bayern don't just buy someone for no reason, right? Right? Bunasar? Sorry, that actually feels like bullying. The guy doesn't have a club at the moment. I take it back. Also, apologies, I forgot to introduce our guest here, which is incredibly rude.
I'm Ben Sabotchak. I'm a football editor, freelance writer, and author.
Benza is a fantastic writer and journalist who has appeared in some of your favorite publications. It's been many years since I've had him on the channel, so it's great to link up once again with him. But back to the defensive work we were talking about, as that has been the main sort of strength and the biggest change we've seen from Liverpool this season compared to the last. One of the big changes comes from a player who is divisive for some, mostly rivals, and brilliant to others, Trent Alexander-Arnold.
We're not seeing Trent Alexander-Arnold inverting into the middle anymore. I thought that always left Liverpool's sort of right-hand side a little bit vulnerable in the last couple of seasons. Now he's sort of sticking to his position. That has helped solidify Liverpool's right-hand side.
Of course, it never hurts to have Konate and Van Dijk playing extremely well together, but one of the main contributors to a strong defense is often having a strong midfield in front of it. and that's exactly what Liverpool now has thanks to Slot's composition of the midfield.
I would say the biggest factor is probably Gravenberch coming in and being that sort of ever-present holding midfielder who can keep and maintain the consistency in midfield and the structure in midfield. Obviously, it helps that either side of him, he has Alexis McAllister, who is brilliant at his defensive work as well, although he's great at other things too. And then Dominic Szoboszlai, who's a brilliant presser, and he will come back and make recoveries and things like that often go unnoticed, because I still feel like he needs to improve in his offensive side of the game. But defensively, that midfield pillar is really important. If we're looking at the Premier League right now, there's few midfielders even in the Premier League who are as good as Ryan Gravenberch in that position.
Finally, a good Dutch player.
In fact, in general, the key difference between how this Slot team is performing, not a difference in how they play, as it's similar to Klopp, but differences in their performances, is definitely down to the defense. And we shouldn't have to say this, but I will anyways. This isn't a slight on Klopp, as he had years where Liverpool's defense was impenetrable. But when you look at the last season or two of his tenure, the defense in midfield was where they were running into issues. But when it comes to pressing and how dangerous they look going forward, this isn't necessarily anything new on the eyeballs for Liverpool supporters, and there is a good reason for that.
One of the most interesting things I got is I interviewed one of his former players from his very, very early days when he was just an academy coach, and he was telling me that actually Arne Slot was showing them clips of Jurgen Klopp's Dortmund in terms of how he wanted them to press. So from very early on, it was very clear that even though there's going to be some differences when it came to the style, the sort of overall essence, it was going to remain very similar to what Jurgen Klopp's football was like at Liverpool.
So Slot confirmed as a Kloppista. So when you look back at how Liverpool played under Klopp, what do you think of? For me, I think of Mane, Salah, and Firmino in that 2018 to 2020 period, and how incredible Liverpool's attack was. If City weren't the all-conquering monsters that they were, and I mean still are, then perhaps those Liverpool sides would have had a more appropriate amount of silverware to speak of that was more representative of their quality. And against Chelsea this past weekend, Slot's Liverpool allowed the Blues to have more of the ball, especially in the second half. And this match was played at Anfield. Cue a bunch of former pros and pundits screaming about how Liverpool should never be playing on the back foot, especially at home. But while most people will associate Liverpool in the Klopp era with front foot attacking football, that wasn't the case in every single match.
Well, first of all, I know Liverpool let Chelsea have a lot more of the ball, but I didn't see any stylistic difference in terms of the pressing that wasn't present when Jurgen Klopp played. There were times when, especially at the height of Liverpool's success, so in those key Man City games, I encourage people to sort of look at the possession statistics. Man City often had a lot of the ball, but Liverpool would beat them 3-1, 4-1 and get those big results because they made their moments count. They pressed at the right times. They capitalised on quick counter-attacks and sort of caught City out. So I don't think this is necessarily a new thing. Maybe we haven't seen it as much recently. Look, right now, Liverpool are top of the league. In general, the football Slot has played has been really fun to watch. There's been some fun goals scored. Liverpool have created the most big chances in the Premier League. So it's not like Slot is playing boring football. Liverpool are creating big chances. They're scoring. They look good in attack. They look good going forward.
Luis Diaz has looked like the best version of himself since joining Liverpool, at least when we're speaking of converting his chances and his output in the attack. He has 5 Premier League goals already, and in his best ever season, he had 8. Mohamed Salah is looking like Mohamed Salah, which is exactly what you want out of Mohamed Salah. He has 5 goals and 5 assists in 8 appearances in the Premier League alone. Remember the Cody Gakpo from major international tournaments for the Netherlands? I mean, he has pretty much shown up for Liverpool as he has found his scoring touch lately. Jota, he is in on the goals as well.
The only striker who's sort of missing in that regard is Darwin Núñez, but there's still faith that Slot can get the best out of him.
In fact, when you look at the way Liverpool are playing at the moment, it's difficult to see any areas of the pitch that are of major concern, except for one, and it probably makes Liverpool supporters greedily dream of just how much better they could be if they had made a signing in this position.
I still think Liverpool need a number 9. I think Liverpool needs someone who can put away those chances. Right now we're not seeing the efficiency necessarily in front of goal.
But another aspect as to why Liverpool have looked so good is that they haven't played the toughest teams that the Premier League has to offer, and Europe, for that matter, have had to offer thus far. Well, luckily for Liverpool supporters, hate watchers, and neutrals alike, we're going to see what Slot's Liverpool is made of very, very soon, because Liverpool have one of the most difficult schedules coming up. Thanks to the Champions League's new format, some high-profile matches are being mixed in with some matches against Liverpool's title rivals in the Premier League.
That's going to be the key test for Arne Slot. Can Liverpool step up in those big matches? We've seen them do it against Chelsea, we've seen them do it against Man United and AC Milan, but can they do it against Real Madrid? Maybe Bayer Leverkusen, Arsenal and Manchester City. Those are going to be the deciders. I think that was almost Jurgen Klopp's Achilles heel last season. The reason why Liverpool dropped off the league title was because of those draws against the big six in the Premier League. I think I saw a statistic that Arne Slot has already gotten the same amount of wins against the big six as Jurgen Klopp did for the entirety of last season.
And of course, let's be completely clear with a couple of things here. This isn't to say that Slot is already better than Klopp. That would be, it would be absolutely absurd. This is just to report on what has happened thus far, not to make any predictions for the future. Let's not get those two ideas mixed up.
I'm yet to fully be convinced that Liverpool can go all the way, and I don't think I'll be convinced until I see them completely tested against the very best teams.
So things look promising at Liverpool, that's for sure. And perhaps with some investment in the striker position, as well as sorting out some of the contracts of players that are in their final year, Liverpool can be looked at as a top 3 to 5 team in Europe once again. But the sort of ace up the sleeve, and likely the big reason as to why Slot was looked at to succeed Jurgen Klopp, is that even if investment isn't made into the squad in certain positions, Slot is a manager that can be dynamic, a manager that can be creative in finding solutions to problems that other managers couldn't. Thanks again to Benza, and thank you for watching this video. My name's Adrian, and I'll catch you later. Ciao.